Hello everyone, I wanted to do my first video on this. This is something that a lot of people have asked me. I've shared obviously over the last couple of years on Twitter some of the travel that I've done, but also some of the deals that I've been able to get with airlines. Some people have often questioned why you're in this country if you're ideally wanting to go from point A to point B, why have you gone to point C instead? So I just kind of want to walk you through the method that I go through when looking for flights, and also the kind of difference that it makes. So I'm going to kind of baseline this with economy flights, but then also talk about business class flights because ideally I want to be traveling in a premium cabin. So first of all, with direct flights, there's a convenience fee with it. You know, people want to get from point A to point B with the least amount of stress and the least amount of time spent. Obviously, you're going to pay a fee for that as well. So the example that I'm going to be walking through today is from London down to Johannesburg. It's somewhere that I travel quite often. So the first thing that you're seeing here is direct economy flights. So it's 2 British Airways flights a day in Virgin Atlantic. So it's 3 flights a day direct from London to Johannesburg. They're pretty similar in price. There's sort of £25 in it. I'd be looking at British Airways. They're my airline of choice. This is fairly typical for an economy flight. And the dates that I've given aren't during a school holiday or half term or around any festive periods. This is beginning of March until about mid-March, about a 2-week trip. So when you start looking for flights, you're going to get different options as well. And you can see the premium that is put on for the convenience of direct. So once again, this is starting in London, ending in Johannesburg, but you're connecting, in these examples, once in, either in Paris, Amsterdam, or Frankfurt. And you're already seeing the prices coming down to sort of around that £500 per person mark, which I think is great. I think that's a great price for flights down to Johannesburg. This comes with, your luggage included as well. But it just kind of illustrates the difference between direct and indirect. Roughly about a 30% saving that you're going to make. So those two direct economy flights, there's an average price of about £695, whereas Air France, KLM, Lufthansa are coming in sort of anywhere between 28% and 30% cheaper. And that's the premium price that airlines are charging for direct. So let's have a look at business class and kind of see what the prices are. Once again, this is direct flights from London down to Johannesburg. Two choices you got: Virgin Atlantic and British Airways. And for one person, £3,500 is a lot of money. So unless you've got a company that's paying for this, you're heading down on a business trip. It's a lot of money for an individual to pay themselves as a cash fare. Once again, we compare it to indirect, starting in London, ending up in Johannesburg, and those prices are coming down dramatically, anywhere from sort of £1,800 with Egypt Air to around £2,300 with Lufthansa. But you're going to start seeing some things in here, and gives you a reason why. It's those journey times. You look at Egypt Air being £1,800. It's a total journey time of 30 hours. So it's got a 17.5-hour layover in Cairo. It's just not a convenient way, to maybe get, from London to Johannesburg, but you're getting a much better price for it as well. So that's going to attract some people. 17.5-hour layover. You can do quite a lot with that. Maybe get a wee bit of sightseeing done in Cairo. So if we kind of put this in a table format again, it's direct prices 3.5 grand. The savings are a lot higher when it comes to business class. We saw it was 28 to 30% in economy, but the percentage saved for business class travel is above 40% generally. Lufthansa is the exception there. And Egypt Air is giving you a saving of 47% versus a direct flight from London to Johannesburg in business class. But is there a better way that you can do this? I'm going to kind of walk you through what I typically do, and you'll kind of see the logic, I think it's quite logical to do. Granted, it's not always the most time-effective way to travel, but you get a lot of really good deals. So I don't always start in London, but I'm going to caveat that with the fact that I technically do. So when I start searching for my flights, I know that there are other cities where it's priced more competitively and a lot more attractively than originating in London itself. So for this example, I'm comparing flights departing once again to Johannesburg, but from London, from Budapest, Madrid, Oslo, and Bucharest. So Bucharest in Romania. And on the right-hand side, you can see the economy fares that we've got in there. So Oslo to Joburg, £429. We've got a Madrid to Joburg on Air France, that's 462. And a handful of other options, so some different timings, shorter and longer layovers. But I think this is where the value comes from, starting in these different cities. It's when it comes to business class. So we've got a range of airlines here: Ethiopian, Lufthansa, British Airways, Air France, and Turkish Airlines, all ranging from a remarkable price of about £1,500 with Ethiopian, up to just around £2,500 with Turkish Airlines, and all quite attractive layovers. Turkish being the longest at 2 hours 20. That's not a crazy long, layover to have in Istanbul. So once again, bit of an eye chart, but how does this compare to those direct business class flights originating in London? British Airways itself, starting in a different country, you're going to be saving 52% compared to that direct flight. You're ultimately going to end up on that exact same direct flight from London to Johannesburg, but you're starting somewhere else as an extra flight to have. Air France, Ethiopian, Lufthansa, Turkish, you're looking anywhere from 30 all the way up to 58% in savings compared to that direct flight. But you're going to have to get to that origin point, to get on the start of that ticket, of that really good value ticket. So I'm going to focus on British Airways for this example. It's my airline of choice. It's what I have status and loyalty with. So that's what I want to be looking at. Now, the example for these dates is weirdly a lot more expensive. My positioning flights to get to Madrid and then to get back from Madrid once that big chunky journey has been completed. In this example in economy, it's £395, but I've done it for £60 return. So you just got to kind of be flexible on those dates and also kind of consider this. But what are the total costs? So we've got technically two journeys on here. We've got the big chunky one. We want to get down to Johannesburg and we want to get back. And that's going to start at Madrid. You're going to fly up to London, connect onto that flight down to Johannesburg. And on the way back, you're going to do the exact opposite of that. Then there's the positioning flights, London to Madrid at the beginning of this entire trip, and then Madrid to London right at the back of the trip, once you want to get home. So a pure cash comparison for all of this, including that really expensive positioning flight, is just under £2,100 per person. So when you compare it to that direct London Johannesburg, it's £1,500 cheaper. So a lot cheaper. But there's one last trick for us to consider, and this is what I do. I have the BA Premium American Express. That's the black one. Comes with a whole host of benefits, and I'm not here to try and push and sell credit cards, but this is just explaining how I use it. So firstly, throughout the year, I get 1.5 Avios for every pound that I spend on that credit card. Secondly, for every £10,000 a year, and that's quite easy for me to do with a mix of personal spend, but also all my business travel goes on there. So I'm not actually paying for it, my work is. So I'm accumulating Avios throughout the year, and I'm able to get those 2-for-1 vouchers. Now, 2-for-1 vouchers are fantastic, but sometimes you just want to use them for yourself. And a recent update to this particular credit card is you can use a 2-for-1 voucher as a single traveler, but it halves the amount of Avios that are required to make that reward booking. So what I've done here is I've plugged in my dates. I want to fly in business class, and thankfully it's off peak, so it's not going to charge me the full amount of Avios required for these particular flights, but a bit more of a competitive amount of Avios. So I select those, I go through, I select my inbound flights as well, and it's giving me this option here. So thankfully, I have the amount of Avios required for this, 82,500 Avios and about £450 in total. There are different options where you can pay less Avios and more cash. I do find once you start dropping the Avios, the cash amount becomes not as competitive. You're not getting as much value, but you can kind of play around with the amount of Avios that you're going to use. So now we look at the total costs. Once again, we've got that big chunky bit, Madrid, London, Joburg return, and then the positioning flights. It's £843 plus Avios for all of that. So you're technically getting, 6 flights? 4 of them will be in business class. 2 of them, the positioning flights, are in economy, but with a bag that can be checked in. And that's compared to £3,500 per person for that direct flight from London to Joburg and back. And once again, I'll reiterate it, you are technically still going to have your bum on the seat on that direct flight from London to Joburg. You'd have just started in Madrid slightly earlier. So that's my explanation for what I do and how I do it. I hope that gives a bit of flavour to it. But yeah, any questions, find me on Twitter.